Hello, this is Dr. Ford Brewer with Preventive Medicine. I have gotten a lot of questions and heard a lot of buzz about bergamot recently. I had a viewer ask me what I knew about Bergamot. Bergamot is a brand name. It claims to have by far the greatest availability of bergamot. I did a little bit of research, but I have to admit, not a huge amount. Trying to verify that, and I really couldn't find much. I did get interested, though, in the whole issue around bergamot. I've had other people, for example, a friend of mine named Dr. Phil Roberts, who works for ID Life. It's a nutraceuticals supplements company. He knows his nutraceuticals and supplements very well, and asked me if I would be willing to do a trial of bergamot and use that to replace it for statins and metformin. Now, why would he do that? Well, it turns out there is some medical evidence, research evidence, objective evidence that bergamot has a positive impact on not only blood glucose but LDL, and not only LDL but all of the blood cholesterol levels. It does that through a couple of chemicals that are very, very high in the bergamot fruit called flavonoids. They have a similar impact in terms of cholesterol production in the body that red rice yeast does, and again, statins are made from red rice yeast. So, am I likely to do that? I'm likely to give it a trial, but here's part of the problem. Number one, regarding glucose, there's just not a whole lot of research out there. And number two, I'm not taking Crestor to lower my LDL. I am taking Crestor to decrease cardiovascular inflammation. As we've said in many videos, cardiovascular inflammation is far more of a risk factor than LDLs, and for me personally, I don't have a high LDL anyway. I have had a low HDL because of my insulin resistance problem. I've gotten improvement on that with niacin. But am I likely to switch permanently to bergamot and away from statins? Not likely. But let's go back and ask the question, what is a statin? Sorry about that. What is a bergamot? Bergamot is it's a fruit. It's a chemical that comes out of a fruit called mint orange. There's some other names for it. Where is it grown? Southern France, southern Italy, and some places in Turkey. What is it used for? Well, the bergamot that's coming from southern France and southern Italy, for the most part, tends to be processed to get the essential oils associated with bergamot. And those essential oils are used in various ways, including the one that many of us have heard of, I'll mention in just a minute. What does it look like? It just looks like an orange tree. What does the orange itself look like? Well, again, I apologize for not having a color printer. I do have one on order. Hopefully I'll get there and be able to set it up. Actually, it's more than on order. It's in my room. I just haven't been able to set it up yet. This is a bergamot orange and the essential oil sitting in front of it. The reason color would be very helpful is that is a bright green peel. It's not an orange peel like you see with other oranges. Now, like I mentioned, most of us have heard of bergamot, and most of us have actually used bergamot, or a lot of us have, especially baby boomers. When I say, what do I base that on? Well, at some point in your life, you've probably had Earl Grey tea. The flavoring, that sort of bitter, earthy taste that you get in Earl Grey tea comes from bergamot. Now let's just take a quick look at some of the literature. A a lot of this got tripped off. You even saw it in the Wall Street Journal in 2015. Bergamot as maybe it's going to replace statins. Well, this was some of the original research that was done that tripped off a lot of that press. It was done by some researchers in Italy. As you may remember, Italy was one of the 3 countries that produces bergamot. They've been producing it for a while. Evidently, somebody noticed the change in cholesterol values. So they've done some really good research in this area. And they have shown, yes, not only does it improve LDL, it improves HDL and several other things. Now let me show you how to read this. This is called a whisker plot. And this gives us some understanding about how much of an impact bergamot has on cholesterol values. So here you get the 2 standard deviations in terms of where it could possibly be given what we found with the research. And then you get on the whiskers other standard deviations. But you really want to look at 2 standard deviations because those cover 95% of your probability. The reality, as you see, is that at least with these first 2 bars, there could actually be no impact. But once you start getting over here and looking at these other values, it's pretty clear that the bergamot is having an effect. In other words, it's not 0. In fact, when you look at it, it does appear to be more like down here, maybe a 20% overall improvement in cholesterol values using bergamot oils. Now, again, how does bergamot do that? It's got a couple of chemicals in it called flavonoids. Those flavonoids have the same impact that the chemicals in red rice yeast or statins have. They decrease production of cholesterol by the body. As most people now know, cholesterol, the major source of cholesterol is not eggs, it's not in your diet at all, it's your own body, specifically your liver making cholesterol. Chemicals in red rice yeast have been found to decrease that production, so they decided to take that red rice yeast and turn it into a medically controlled production environment, and that's where statins came from. So as you can see, there's that same research process going on with bergamots. The chemical's going to be different. It's going to be flavonoids, and I wouldn't be surprised at all to see some medicinal production coming out of this, because again, there's enough information to indicate that it works. But again, it works for the cholesterol values. That's helpful. That's actually what I'm using niacin for right now. Here's another version of looking at these results. This is before bergamot, and this is HDL and the bad cholesterol. Remember, HDL is the good cholesterol. This is a profile of the bad cholesterols. This is before and this is after. So you see, you did get some actual increase in HDL and significant decrease overall in the pattern on the other cholesterol values. Now, if bergamot does turn out to be anti-inflammatory, that to me would be a whole different ballgame. Obviously, there's been no research in that area. They're just now getting started in looking at cholesterol values themselves. And again, there's so few of us that are looking at cardiovascular inflammation. I don't expect to see any of that inflammation research coming out anytime soon. Now, I haven't really mentioned, in terms of the science, the information around blood glucose. There's a reason for that. It does appear to decrease blood glucose, as seen in these graphs. However, there's very little information out there about it at this point. You compare that to something like metformin, and it's like no comparison at all, at least in terms of the information that's out there. So, do I think bergamot is a lightweight? Well, maybe a lightweight so far, but is there no help or no potential for it? And I didn't say that at all. There is clearly potential for bergamot. Is it going to be a safer alternative than the statins or metformin? Probably not safer than metformin. It may actually be an alternative at one point. But metformin's, for most people, is pretty safe. How about the statins? Well, it very well may turn out to be a safe alternative for the statins, but I don't think there's evidence at all for that at this point. Let's just get to another point about safety. There's a common assumption from people that use any type of essential oils, supplements, other things, that because something is, quote, natural, it's safer. I spent a good part of my life as a toxicologist, a physician that studies poisons and the impact on the human body, and I can tell you there is a lot of truth to that old common statement that anything can be poisonous in the right dose in the right time. Bergamot oil, for example, has been reported to kill people. It's killed a few children who took way too much. That was unusual because, and in fact, I still struggle to figure out how those kids could have taken that much because bergamot is such a strong taste. However, the reports are out there. There's a very common negative side effect with bergamot. It's called phototoxicity. It's a rash associated with exposure to light. So, I guess I'd wrap it up with one of my favorite sayings. It's been attributed, versions of this saying have been attributed to anyone from John Wayne, Mark Twain, Winston Churchill. From John Wayne and Mark Twain, you get the attributed saying that, you know what, life is one darn thing after another. I'm not sure they use the term darn. I think anyway. Winston Churchill applied it to all of mankind. He said history is just one damn thing after another. And finally, again, those of us baby boomers who used to watch a little bit of TV, you may remember Rosanna Dana. And she said, it's just always something. Again, in this area, I think we're going to continue to find new solutions, but every solution brings a whole new set of problems.